Hey, welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from Super Good Camping. We are from supergoodcamping.com. We are here because we're on a mission to inspire other families to enjoy camping adventures such as we have with our kids. Today's guest canoes, hikes, camps, hunts, fishes, and has recently embraced van life. Sometimes he's solo, sometimes with friends, but always on an adventure. He publishes fantastic content on his YouTube channel and on Instagram. He's also a member of a group of adventurers here in Ontario known as the Rat Pack. Please welcome Richard Tosh, better known as Tosh Self Propelled. Yay, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for dropping by for a chat, man.
Oh, happy to. Thanks for the invite.
Anytime. As I've stated, 473 times, I will, if it like-minded people, I will chat with them for hours and hours and hours at the drop of a hat. No problem.
Tim can talk your ear off with no trouble.
I got some issues.
Perfect.
So out of the gate, the first thing is I want to find out how you got into doing the things that you do. But I'm interested. How did you get into doing like your channel, your YouTube channel, and in Instagram stuff like that? That one day you were just touring along and you went, maybe I should share this with people, or what?
Well, the whole social media side of things is not me at all. That was completely foreign to me until I left the military in 2018. And up until that point, I had zero social media. I'd never been on Facebook. I'd never used anything. And what's the best way to describe it? I guess I didn't realize it was happening when I left the military, but I was in a very tight-knit community, and I had a great support system around me. And I didn't want to leave the military when I did. I have a back injury, and so I just couldn't do my job anymore in the infantry. So after I left, I was just very aimless, I guess. I didn't know where I was going or what I wanted to do. I couldn't go back into construction that I had done before the military due to the back injury. And I didn't realize it at the time, but like my life just really started to spiral downward very quickly. I found myself not wanting to leave the house, not wanting to do any of the things I wanted to do. Eventually that led to through Veterans Affairs, I was sent to see psychiatrists and psychologists, and I was eventually diagnosed with depression. And due to a bunch of different factors, whether it's my professional life and my personal life kind of came apart at the same time. And I found myself just sitting sometimes for days. I wouldn't leave the house, sometimes like a week, and I wouldn't even go outside. And I had always been very involved in everything outdoors. I grew up hunting and fishing and camping. My dad and all my uncles, I was very blessed as a child to have all these people in my life who loved to do all this stuff outside, and they always, would let me tag along with them. But at that time in 2019, I had no interest in any of that. And I would sit for days and I just watch Netflix or YouTube and shut out the whole world, like close the blinds. Nothing else matters. I don't care. And I started watching some people on YouTube, a bunch of different people across Ontario. And one guy in particular, down in Utah, Steve from Firebox Stoves, started watching their channels of these guys going out camping. And I thought, I used to like to do this stuff, and I'm being told by other people that I should get off my ass and go outside and do something. And, how hard could it be? I'm going to go camping again. And
okay.
I went on a little canoe trip with a friend of mine, my oldest friend from high school. We went to Algonquin for a few days, and I was like, yeah, I really do remember I used to love to do this. Like I had just been separated from everything for so long. So that little canoe trip to Algonquin was really just a spark that lit the whole fire. And when I got back from that trip, I'm like, okay, I need to get a lighter canoe. I had this old 90-pound fiberglass tub that was, just I couldn't carry it. And so went and found a Kevlar canoe on Kijiji, and then thought, oh, I'll get a camera, and how hard can it be, really, right? Like, see all these people on YouTube making videos, and I'll be the first to admit that I have no experience in anything related to computers or anything. Like, video editing was so foreign to me. I mean, I could barely turn it on and send an email. And so I picked up a used camera again off Kijiji and went out on a little canoe trip and came back and realized that everything I'd filmed was completely unwatchable. And, just like shaky footage and terrible, everything was awful. I couldn't stand that. Like, my own voice sounded weird to me on camera. And so I thought, well, what the hell? I'll do it again. Let's try it again. And it led to one trip after another. And I just kept taking the camera out. And oddly enough, the thing that really started to hit me was once I started doing it, I started to connect with other people, either through YouTube or through Instagram, that were also doing the same thing. And that's the part that was a total shock to me, because if you look at my channel, like, the first bunch of videos were me and my dog, Cooper. It's just the two of us most of the time. And then all of a sudden, a little while in, I start meeting all these people, and it's one trip after another with just different dudes I met off YouTube or off Instagram or whatever. I'd get messages from people. Hey, do you want to go canoeing? And I'd go check out their channel or go look at their Instagram and think, yeah, maybe I'll try going out with that guy or this guy or whatever.
Make sure they're not a serial murderer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little odd when you get a message from a complete stranger on the internet that, do you want to go spend a few days in the woods together?
Yeah, but I get a lot of that every time I extend an invitation. Yep.
So far it's all worked out. I mean, some of these guys, I've had some amazing trips. Jason Bayans and that was, again, he reached out to me on Instagram, sent me a message. We sat down and had a drink together and looked at some maps, and then we went and spent 14 days paddling to James Bay together.
Sweet.
And that's led to a bunch more trips we've done together. But that was our first trip ever paddling, was this trip, 350 kilometers to James Bay.
It's amazing to have that kind of faith in a stranger, basically, because, I mean, you've seen each other's YouTube content, I'm sure, but still, you don't know this person. And
yeah, I think you can, I find anyway, you can get a pretty good judge of people just based on their YouTube content a little bit. At least you get a feeling for what this person might be like. And yeah, it's a gamble. It hasn't always worked out. There's been times where I've gone out and then, it was okay, but there was no plan after that for another trip. But yeah, some people just, hit it off, things go great, and before that trip ends, you're planning the next one.
Sweet. Well, I'm glad it worked out despite the shaky cam, out of focus pile of crap the first one was. But you have to do that. I have plenty of. I'm pointing at. I have a hard drive full of all of our trips. I just never get around to. Never mind.
I remember a quote, actually, just reminds me of. There's a quote called "Embrace the suck," and it's whenever you're starting something that you need to embrace that sucky part where you're really not good at it until you can plow your way through and get to the point where you are good at it.
Yeah, I can see how that plays. Although, also for myself, I tape. Like, I shoot part of it, a trip, and plan it out and do the things. And then at some point I go, I just want to enjoy the day. I don't want to shoot anything. I don't, I'll take pictures because that's a quick, easy whip it out. frame it, click, 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 Bob's your uncle. But to set up video and stuff like that, it's like, you know what? And for me, most of the time, my backcountry experiences involve our eldest son. And you know what? The kid's 22 and he still wants to hang out with me. I kind of want to spend that time together. Like I want to do those things for as long as he's interested in hanging out with the old guys. So
yeah,
there
that's
you
the
go.
beautiful part about these trips, is you can set it up however you want. And if it's a video you want to get out of it, you can do that. If it's just the experience, put the camera away and nobody needs to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Potentially a sideways question, but with your crappy back, how does that? Okay, so this is a guy. Just so you know, this is a guy that I have 2 discs from my shoulders down that aren't fused. Everything else is solid. I have a boatload of hardware, and there are like Advil is my other backcountry partner. It's the only way I can get through a lot of things, especially with sitting and that sort of jazz. It just stuff swells up, makes for an unhappy situation. How do you plow through that? Are you fixed? Did you have surgery? Do you just deal with it? Did you work out in new ways? How do you do the stuff you do, man?
So I haven't had surgery. I've been told that it will get to the point where it's probably going to be necessary to fuse. So I have 3 compressed discs in my low back. And if I'm careful, most of the time, it's not too bad. I would say, like I've said this to doctors before, the pain runs at about a 3 out of 10, and it stays there. It's something I deal with daily, and it's just become the norm for me. So if you find like I'm shifting around a lot in my seat and whatever, that's just to offset some pressure. It just settles in if I'm stagnant for too long. And that was actually, again, going back to not wanting to leave the house and everything. That was probably the worst thing I could have done for my back. Was I was putting on weight and just not doing any form of exercise. When I was in the military, I was a gym rat. I loved the gym. I would cycle to work, to the gym every day, work out for a couple hours every morning, and often get another workout in the afternoon or on the way home or something. So I was spending, a couple hours minimum every day exercising. And then when I hurt myself, it tapered off because I couldn't do what I'd been doing. And I got into this point, it's a really lousy place to be where you just think, where I was thinking, like, what's the point? If I can't do it at that level, what's the point of doing it? What's the point of doing just a little bit? Who cares about, this will help me down the road. Like if I can't do, pick up a couple 100 pounds and throw it around and whatever, then, who cares? And what am I training for? That was actually a big part of it. Was my training always had a purpose. I was working towards something, to be more fit for my job or another course I wanted to take. And so I was in the infantry and then got into reconnaissance and eventually became a sniper. And so you're with highly motivated people in that section of the military. It's a very tight-knit little community of guys that are very motivated, very driven, very goal-oriented. And after I was hurt, I couldn't, find a goal that made sense to me. And in fact, like a lot of people, when they see the name of my channel, they automatically assume it's physically self-propelled. And there is an element of that in the naming of the channel, but actually where the name initially came from was being just mentally self-propelled, getting my mind into a place where I was forcing myself off the couch, out of the house, and out to do something. Because in the Army and in the infantry particularly, everything's laid out for you. You're told what to wear, what time to be somewhere, what you're going to do when you get there, and what the outcome's going to be when you finish. And so it's completely different when I left. It's like, okay, now what? Like, I'm my own boss again, and
Who's
I have
telling
to
me what to
motivate
do?
myself. So that's where the name actually came from, was just like, I need to be self-propelled, self-motivated, and get out and do something. And I mean, what better place to do that, I find anyway, than in the backcountry.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. And thanks for saving me that question, because there you go. All right, so you're you've already explained your origin story with your dad and your uncles and all that sort of jazz. Which is excellent. I think a lot of us that play outdoors, that's kind of our origin story. Paddling and stuff. So did it start? So by say 2018 you're out, 2019 you're starting to get out there and paddle with the stupidly heavy canoe. Which, just so you know, you're not the only one that had one of those 90 pounders. I have a nice light Kevlar one now too, because I'm old and I don't need to do any more damage to my back. You know what? Tell me how you went from, because if it's a long time, it still takes a while to sort of get back into that groove of paddling in the backcountry. Did you do a couple like sort of gentle trips, check it out, go, yeah, I can do this, and then bug out for whatever, your trip to James Bay, or you started doing that sort of jazz? Like, do you just go, yeah, I can, this is the thing?
I typically I have like an all or nothing personality, where either I dive in head first and I don't bother to check the depth of the water. I'm going in. This is what we're doing. Or I'm not going to bother. I don't want anything to do with it. And so my first solo trip that I decided to do, like, I think I did a couple little overnighters just to go out and, figure out, if my tent was going to work and what I needed. But the first time I decided, yep, I'm going to go out and do a solo canoe trip, Cooper was 9 months old. And I had a friend drop me off on the west side of Algonquin on Magnetawan, I think it is, Magnetawan Lake. And we crossed Algonquin Park from west to east following the Petawawa River over 7 days. And there was a lot of ups and downs. It was like I was kind of just mentally trying to get my head around what I was doing. And I mean, Coop was a pup, so he was, it was the first time he'd ever like carried his own little pack, and we were just figuring things out together. But I tried to film it. Of course, that was completely useless. The video was, I just deleted everything when I got home and looked at it. But it was a trip of just getting out there. There was the water was very low on the Petawawa. So I took most of the paint off the bottom of this nice Kevlar canoe that I had just purchased and repainted. And that was kind of the tipping point of saying, like, okay, I remember I can do this. I've done solo trips, in my early 20s. And yeah, there was a lot of long portages. Some of the portages, I just laid the canoe down. I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to drag this for a little bit because I can't carry it anymore. And, but yeah, it was just dive in and let's see what happens. I mean, what's the worst that can happen, right? I get stranded in the middle of Algonquin somewhere.
Yeah. Well, 7 days
But,
from west to east, that's hauling it, baby.
yeah, we put in some long days, and I took a lot of Tylenol, Advil, a lot of naproxen, pretty much just took a handful of pills and knocked myself out every night. And having Coop along was fantastic because he was a puppy. He was full of energy. He was always ready to go. And then he just crashed beside me every night. Yeah, that was a real experience for the two of us. My first real canoe trip in many years, his first really ever. But we had a great time, and then it just, each trip was, whether it was not always more remote, but it was just, each trip kind of was another step in, the evolution of getting back into it again, changing up some gear, going a bit lighter, figuring out what worked and what didn't, and yeah, always experimenting. I don't really get tied into any particular one way of doing anything. Um, if there's a better way to do it, sure, let's try that and see if I like that better. And so I'm always, try a new piece of kit or a new piece of gear and whatever. But also getting onto the Petawawa again, paddling some moving water. I had paddled a few rivers, many years ago, and it's like, yeah, I remember I like whitewater. Grew up watching Bill Mason, Path of the Paddle and all those videos. And so then, not long after that, I found a used Royal X canoe on Kijiji, and it came outfitted with thigh straps and airbags, and got it for a really good price. It's pretty beat up. It's got lots of dings and creases in it, but still floats and paddles pretty well. And so then now I started looking for rivers to paddle, and that's taken on a whole life. I'm a confessed whitewater addict.
Yeah, that seems to be a thing when people start doing it, a little trepidatious or whatever, and as soon as they start doing it, and they go, "Oh, I just did that. Oh, it's a challenge. Okay, I can do that. Oh yeah. Oh. And you just watch them go, doom, 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 doom. I'm doing class 3. I don't care. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go."
Yeah.
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 Cool.
It's always just little steps to keep building, and it is addictive once you get into it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be maybe not this year, but I'm going to start planning towards having that same addiction, because I'm watching too many people have way too much fun with it. So
Yeah.
I'm terrified, but I kind of feel like I need to do it. So.
Yeah. My whitewater experience, I started off probably the way that you shouldn't. And that was, I was a teenager, and my dad's older brother, David, he was a real mentor to me, but he was a paddling addict. He just loved to be on the water, paddling his canoe anytime he could. And he got me into whitewater. The first time I ever ran rapids, we pinned the boat, and I was 14, like swimming through, rocky, shallow rapids, getting all banged up. And we fixed the boat. We had to paddle it out, kind of broken, and the gunnels all snapped, and we made it home, and we fixed it up, and we took it out again next year and dumped in another rapid. And, last year, actually, I went to, was it Riverfest, Palmerfest? I don't know. I heard it called both names.
Yep.
At the Paddler Co-op.
Yep.
And that's where the first time I ever saw like that kind of community of people that are all different levels with expert instruction. And I chose to just play around in a little pack raft. That's the word I'm looking for. I went pack rafting for the day, and that thing's like, it's impossible to paddle a pack raft without a smile on your face. You can't do it. It's so much fun to play in. But then there was kayakers and canoeists, and it's this whole community. And then there's, instructors there, top notch. And yeah, it was pretty neat to see. Like, I would like to go back. I wish I had have taken more instruction when I was younger. Probably would have saved me a lot of headaches along the way. But I'm pretty confident now, and my technique's probably not the best, but I'm fairly confident in some reasonably sized whitewater.
Well, I remember reading that you learn more from making mistakes than you learn from doing things right. So learn from your mistakes.
Yeah,
that's why.
If that was the case, I would think I'd be a lot smarter than I am, because I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. But yeah, it's, once you get into it, you wonder, like, why did I wait so long to try this? Because it's like when you feel the water pick the canoe up, and then you start to once you start to know where you want to go, you identify where the rocks are and where the channel is you want to go, and then you figure out how to get the boat to go there. It's such a cool feeling. And all of a sudden you realize like you're running stuff that you didn't think was a canoe could get through. And yeah, when you just make that perfect line down, you look at the rapid, you're like, hey, I got to go here to here to here, and then you make the boat do all that. It's the greatest feeling at the end. Like, it's so exciting to do.
Okay, I don't need more convincing. Just stop. All right. Well, and as life has progressed, you have a new thing that you're doing. What is the new thing that you're doing?
I'm sitting in it right now. So I'm here in southeastern Nevada, and it's almost a year ago that I've been looking at vans for a while. So this is a Sprinter van built out as a camper with water, solar, everything you need in here. There's a fridge. And I'd been looking at them for a while, and then he had this like weird thing where he would be passing blood every once in a while, and I'd take him to the vet, and they'd say, "Oh, he appears to be fine." And then it got really bad mid-March of last year, and I took him in, and they found that he had cancer, and there were several tumors on his heart and his spleen and his liver, and I think that probably had been the problem all along, and they hadn't diagnosed it.
Just missed it.
And by that point, it was, this is like, it's beyond anything they could do. Like, so I lost Coop, about a year ago. And that was like, that dog went everywhere with me, everywhere. If I was driving somewhere, he was riding in the truck. If anywhere I went, any hiking, if you go look at my channel, you'll see them, he's running around in James Bay on the mud flats. He's, swimming in Lake Superior and all the rivers and lakes in between that we've been to. He was always there and slept beside me every night for 5 years. And after I lost Coop, I just thought, what am I waiting for? I've wanted to try this van, living on the road. It's all like the idea of it always had really appealed to me. And so I found this van. It was in Vancouver. I bought a one-way ticket to Vancouver and flew out, met the guys that built it. And because I tossed around the idea of, do I want to build one myself or do I want to buy one completed? And I decided to buy it. It's about 95% the way, complete when I bought it. And I decided I'd save the time and then I could get out in it and use it rather than spend, 6 months or something working on one. But I went out and saw these guys in Vancouver, spent a day touring around. They showed me how everything worked, and all right, here's a check. See you later. And I turned around and drove it back to Ontario. And got back and still had a place in Petawawa where I was living. And so over the summer, moved everything of mine into storage, got rid of the house, and moved into this full-time September of last year. So yeah, sold my truck, and this is everything I own except for a storage unit with my boats and some extra camping gear in it.
All right, you just saved me another question then.
So where have you been? You're in Nevada, and you said now. So what have you been? What have your travels been?
Last summer, I spent a lot of time just touring around Ontario. I'd throw the canoe on top and getting used to just the van life. But I still had a house to go back to. And in the fall, when I got out of the house, then I kind of bounced around Ontario a little bit until it started to get fairly cold. And then it was like, I'm going south till I can put shorts on. And so came down straight through the Midwest, down to Texas, and spent most of December down in Texas. Spent about 2 weeks down around Big Bend, and swam in the Rio Grande, and swam across to Mexico and back a few times. Spent some time down there just exploring, and then up into New Mexico. Spent most of January, I think, in Arizona, and then most of February in kind of like the border area between Arizona and Nevada, Utah. And yeah, I've like completely fallen in love with it. Even more than I knew I was going to like it, but it's even more than I ever thought I would. Just the simplicity of this life, and like the freedom, and you don't like the weather or the neighbors, you just pick a spot on the map and go in that way. And yeah, it's been great just touring around, go see the sights. I put the camera away for probably the first 6 weeks I was on the road. I barely filmed anything, and I'd get a few shots here and there, but it was mostly just settling into like, this is the normal routine of my life. And I hadn't been to the gym since, not regularly, pretty much since I left the military, and I'd put on a fair bit of weight. But then I got in the van, and like I have a shower on the back door. It's outside. You can't use that if you're around other people, obviously. So
You can, but there might be jail time involved.
Yeah. So I picked up a Planet Fitness membership, and it's like $30 a month. It's cheap. So I thought, okay, that's where I'll go to shower. There's Planet Fitness everywhere across the U.S. Like, you can find one in just about any reasonably sized town, or even small, like cities have multiple gyms. So while I was there, I thought, oh, maybe I'll do a little bit of a workout. I'll get on a bike. I'll go on, just walk on the treadmill for a little bit. I'll maybe try and push some weights around. Started feeling okay, testing the limits of what I can do with my back, and what is worth doing, and what's going to make me be in more pain the next day. Then I try to avoid that. But yeah, it's been great for me, because now I'm back in the gym like virtually every day. Like, sometimes I plan my routes around where the Planet Fitnesses are in the area, and things I want to see. And okay, I want to go to this site and check that out, and I can bounce over to the gym and shower after and do something there. But yeah, it's just such a simple life. Like, it's not that, there's no drama, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is like, it's just get up leisurely, like slide the door open, and there's the desert. I can see for 30 miles out the door, and the skyline out here, the mountains and everything. And then every day pretty much is a different view. I might stay in the same area, but I rarely camp or park, overnight in the same place, more than once if I can just find somewhere else. And yeah, just bounce around, whatever works. If I have to stay in town, I usually try and find a nice brightly lit parking lot and stay there. And then when I go out of town, I find a nice dark corner in the desert and go down some rocky gravel road and end up in the middle of nowhere and just sit and watch the stars in the evening or something, and see some of the most spectacular sunsets I've ever seen in my life in the last couple months. It's been pretty great.
Cool. Well, I'm glad, man. That sounds like fun. I'm curious, what's the legal logistics of being a Canadian south of the border for however long? Like, do you have to is there some kind of weird visa thing? What you just go,
Nope.
I'm traveling, I'm what?
Yeah, as a tourist, you're allowed to come down here as just to travel for up to 6 months of the year. So they ask you at the border when I crossed, where you're headed and what you're doing, and I said I'm going to Texas, and how long are you going to be there? So I gave them a rough timeline, and yeah, okay. enjoy your trip. And that was it. And then, so I've been using on my phone, there's an app called iOverlander, and it's just a crowdsource app. People find places to camp and they just pin them on the app. And so you get a little description and maybe a few pictures, and you can search by established campgrounds, wild camping. You can look for, there's like 30 different things you can select to search for. And I just look at wild camping, and, you see, oh, it's BLM land, Bureau of Land Management. That's the U.S. equivalent kind of Crown land. And depending where you are, you can stay for up to 14 or sometimes 30 days. And you go to some spots and there's like RVs and campers as far as you can see. And other times there's just, you drive a little bit farther past the easy accessible points, just like if you go to a Algonquin Park, the first couple lakes are going to be busy, but once you get in a little farther,
Nobody around.
You can find some gorgeous spots to camp. And I guess it's a little different in the U.S. than just trying to figure out state to state different regulations. For example, Arizona has Arizona Trust land, they have BLM land, they have state parks, there's national parks, and all of them have different regulations. So I was going to camp in one area in Arizona, but it's Arizona Trust land, which is managed by the state. You need a permit. The permit's only $15. You can get it online, but you have to print a copy of the permit and put it in the window of your vehicle. It has to be displayed at all times. And if you don't have it, it's a $500 fine. So I'm like, okay, well, I could camp here, but I don't have a printer. So how am I going to put the permit in my window? So I'd go find somewhere else. And eventually I found an office where you could go into the state trust and they'll print the permit for you. But little things like that, just trying to figure out, I just trying to stay within the rules. Same thing with filming. It's a lot different down here than we experience in Ontario or Canada, where the national parks and the majority of the state parks now require you to fill out and apply for a permit prior to filming there, which is anywhere I've seen from $100 to $250 to apply, 14 days to get your permit, like 14 days for them to process your application before they give you the permit. And your permit has to have, your dates of where you're going, who's going to be with you, what your equipment is, what you're doing it for. And so again, going back to Texas, I was down in Big Bend, was all set up. I was going to rent a canoe and spend 10 days paddling on the Rio Grande down through the lower canyons, which if you've ever seen pictures of this, it is spectacular. You're paddling through like 400 or 500 foot canyon walls, just that red rock of the South Desert.
Cool.
And so I found an outfitter, found a rental canoe. It was going to be a solo trip. I had all the gear, everything was lined up, and I went into the park office and told them what I wanted to do, and then I wanted to film it for my YouTube channel. And they said, okay, the guy who you'd have to apply to or give your application to is away right now, and he won't be back for 7 more days. And then he has 14 days to approve it, so you'll get your permit in 21 days. And I'm not waiting around here for 3 weeks, for this. I'm already paying to stay in the national park, and now I'm going to add 3 weeks to the stay, and my permit may not be approved. Like, all right, I'm on down the road. I'll find somewhere else to go. But yeah, it's just a different system, and if you want to stay within the rules and not get in trouble for it, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, another level of bureaucracy. I've heard from a lot of content creators that are south of the border from here that they're all like, what? So it's like, and it makes sense if you're a professional shoot, but most YouTubers aren't. They've got 207 followers, and that's just a hobby thing they do because it's fun, keeps them out of trouble. It gets them to. Dennis always says he documents it because his grandkids can go, yeah, that's my papa. He did the cool things, right? So yeah.
I mean, the number of people that do it professionally that make a living on YouTube compared to the number of people who just do it for fun, or maybe they're hoping someday that they'll be able to make money off it. But even if your channel isn't even monetized, they still require the permit because YouTube will put ads on your, and so there's a monetary side to it. So like you said, it's just another level of bureaucracy, and I guess they have enough visitors down here that they don't need anyone to promote their parks and share some of these beautiful spaces, because that's something that is very different between Canada and the U.S. that I never really thought about coming down here, but there are about 10 times more people in the U.S. than there are in Canada. So, 10 to 1 in terms of population. And you see it when you go to some of these parks. Like there's, if you want to go on a specific hike, say in the Grand Canyon or Sedona, or in a lot of the big parks in Utah, some of the more popular, spectacular places, you need a permit just for that hike, and you might have to apply for it sometimes 6 to 12 months in advance in order to get a reservation. And you need to put yourself in a cancellation list. You might be able to get in a little sooner, but if you want to go to Angel's Landing or something in Utah, good luck. That's a trip you got to plan way in advance, and I'm terrible at that. I fly by the seat of my pants all the time. So, when I get there, it's oh, this bureaucracy. I'm going somewhere else now.
Yeah, I hear you. But that's a good thing in the sense that means there's that many people interested in being in all the nature places. So,
yeah, that's the trade-off is, if people love these places, then they're more inclined to protect them.
Yeah, I want to call it a win. You know the system up here, 5 months to the day at 7 a.m. If you don't book it, that you're on a cancellation list and praying that somebody has overbooked or terribly has a sickness in the family and they can't go or something like that. Because we're screwed as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're also very fortunate in Ontario that we have some great parks and some beautiful places, but we also have just an unbelievable amount of public land that you can go to with no reservations, no permits required, and also find canoe routes, spectacular canoe routes where you can go and you just show up and it's all free. Have at her.
Yep.
That's it for us for today. Thank you so much to our special guest, Richard Tosh, better known as Tosh Self Propelled. Find him on Instagram as Tosh Self Propelled or on YouTube also as Tosh Self Propelled. And we will talk to you again soon. I'm Pamela.
I'm still Tim.
And we are still from supergoodcamping.com. You can reach out to us at any point. We would love to hear from you on all the social media, or you can email us at hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. And we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.